or helped you master the mindset for success that you have?
Both. I think that when you grow up in an environment where, I grew up in seeing a lot of graphic violence, and I bore witness to trauma. Meanwhile, even trauma sometimes it's different when trauma is imprinted physically on your being and your soul, and then you're bearing witness to it. So I think I learned very early that I have the ability to change this, and I'm going to become the very thing that I did not want to be. And I will share. It's a lifelong journey, but it's literally the foundation where I had to onset a lot of emotional, intelligent, and mental health care practices at a very early age, where a lot of people don't really. Some cultures are not even open to that. And like a good portion of the Black community are just now having the conversation the last 10 years around mental health, right? Whereas the rest of the world outside of that have been talking about emotional intelligence. And so a part of the disconnection that I have felt in my journey, even with my own community, was that. It was like, you're talking about the problem. I'm actually speaking about the solution. And so when I talk about how that led to my success is emotional. Doesn't mean, I think that's the one part that we get very lost in entrepreneurship. We think that there will never be any weapons formed, but there will always be weapons formed against us, but they will not prosper if you continue to move forward and look at them through the eyes of light. And what I mean by looking at through the light of looking at through the eyes of, even though this was painful, this was still for my good, and everything will work together for the good of those that believe in that good. And I think that's been the problem for many people. The moment that something bad happens to us, we believe it's not a part of the source's plan for us, or we're going the wrong path, but not understanding the source has already preordained our steps. They already knew we were going to be there. We already knew that we were going to be there. So there's not really a wrong or right choice. It's just moving forward in the direction that you believe is a choice for you. So therefore, when obstacles do appear, they can be defined in that moment. And we need to stop trying to living in the future and living in the past. We need to be present, so that way when we do collide with the future, we know how to walk through that season.
Right, and it's sort of like it's a theme of what you are saying sort of over this podcast too, is not to get stuck, whether it's the weapons against us or it's the inadequacy of the moment, and to try to just look forward and align yourself with, positive, a positive look forward.
Yeah, it very much is. It's all how we reframe it. A lot of times I actually just walked through, even doing the mental work myself right now again, where I'm like, you know what, I've been thinking this way for so long, and how did I start thinking this way? I created this storyline so that way I could cope with the pain that I was walking through. But if I had just brought the pain to the surface and ripped off the Band-Aid, then it doesn't mean that I still didn't have to walk through the pain, but it wouldn't have been this turning into this festering pool that just became a pylon of other things. So sometimes we become our worst enemies because we are in so much, we almost hide because we feel we don't want to be exposed for who we are. Yeah, and I always share, if we just, and I think this is also the other thing too, for those that are listening, exposing yourself does not mean exposing yourself to other people. There are circumstances for that, and it's fine if you do that. But sometimes it's just exposing yourself in that private space to yourself, in that mirror. I didn't need to run to tell somebody that, I'm feeling fractures here, I'm broken here. I could have just said, hey, Janae, it's okay. You went through the situation. But a lot of us are not trained to do that, We're trained to just always seeking something outside of ourselves in order to fulfill ourselves.
Let me ask you something else. as a successful and generous businesswoman, you have the opportunity to find new female-led projects. To fund new female-led projects. What do you think having good founder DNA is?
Good founder DNA? Oh, wow.
Just something easy.
That is someone that is receptive, someone that has an idea that isn't just, it's not money motivated. It is resourceful. It has sustainability practices built into it. It feels intentional. It has the utmost clarity. And having people that also manage from soul, lead from soul, not manage, but lead from soul, are what I found are great leaders. People that are doing this, like they would have been doing this anyway. It wasn't like, oh, well, I saw Bill Gates was able to build $1 billion company, so that was now my I think that's what people also forget. Like Elon Musk did not create Tesla because he was focused on, oh, I need to become a billionaire. He was like, wow, wouldn't it be cool that we could create an electrical car, or wouldn't it be cool if we could create a spaceship that could do X, Y, and Z? And he was coming more from that standpoint. So we could get people to focus more on creating from a place of intentionality and desire for change instead of creating from a place of just looking at our primitive needs. And not to say that our needs are not important, but I also feel like for me, what I've discovered in this is that when I was focused on chasing money, I was operating in a high level of scarcity. But when I shifted my focus and allowed money to chase me, it became intentional. And money actually gravitated to me quicker. And so I share with founders, when you embark on this journey, entrepreneurship is a journey of self. It's actually one of the greatest blessings of my life to be an entrepreneur, because it's not just about creating a company. It's about developing an ecosystem that has tentacles and people. It's responsible for other people's lives and how you impact them and what you impart on them and how you lead them. And so I don't want people to ever think that, well, I'm going to start a company and I'm going to be at the top and I'm going to be the CEO, because that's really not the sustainability of what is happening and what is necessary for us to move into the future of entrepreneurship. The future of entrepreneurship is very much soul leading and sustainable. And when we look at soul purpose, people need to know that the greatest ideas that have the sustainability came out of people that became obsessed with an idea that was very much soul-driven. Your soul is what gets you through the times when you can't pay your staff or like the bills are due and all of the headaches that come with entrepreneurship. If you're just focused on money, those people crumble and fall. And all of us talk about this behind the scenes. It doesn't have sustainability because it's not, money is only a piece of the impact, not the entire impact.
Right. And I think what you're also saying is it's important to let things evolve naturally and not push them. Because if it's natural, then I guess you find more of your true authentic voice. Whereas if you're pushing it, then maybe not so much.
Yeah, and that's a hard balance, because there's always this inner conflict with every person naturally. Right. But for the entrepreneur, you can become very convoluted and noisy in your spirit, because you're just like, as your company and you grow. So this is why it's important for you to fill your capacity wells and expand your capacity. Because if you don't do that, it's easy to become distracted. It's easy to lose sight of what your role is. It's easy to just be tossed to and fro. And the leaders that create impact and change, and some of the world's ultra high net worth people, all of us have this in common, is that I was unshakable because I was anchored and connected to something. And that anchoring and connection, if you were to talk to me about in the days of building my company, my kids were under 5 years old, 5 and under, and I was working 16, 18-hour days, okay? I was living in a suitcase. I went back to live with my mom, and I was sleeping on a twin-size bed. People just don't know parts of that story. I had to go back to even living with that. husband that I left, right? And people don't know, you cannot be driven, if you're only driven by money, you can't make it through those types of dynamics that I watched.
Right.
What drives you is that there's this incessant calling where it's like, I have to keep going, I have to keep going. What if I get half? And it doesn't mean that I didn't want to give up, but it was my soul that was pulling me forward. And when people truly understand that, they will understand that that's how you become successful. It's when your soul drives you to a place that you would never have embarked on. You had no idea.
Right. Janae, we're going to have to stop, but I want to thank you so much for sharing with our listeners today your motivation for why you chose to be a female entrepreneur, and also how you overcame some of the psychological obstacles that you encountered during your inspirational journey. Where can people reach you to learn more about your work?
People can reach me to learn more about my work by visiting JanaeAizenstros.com. That's JanaeAizenstros.com, or they can Google me. They can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Aizenstros.
Great. Thank you so much, and I really appreciate, again, you coming on.
This podcast is brought to you by Women Entrepreneurs Global, the first startup studio and digital DIY startup platform for women. For more information on her guests, this podcast, and many other female founder programs, please visit womenentrepreneurs.global. We believe in open and non-stigmatizing dialogue about the hidden psychological difficulties experienced by many successful entrepreneurs, and highlighting the strategies used to overcome them, such as the fear of failure, of not being good enough, and that loud, chattering internal critic is critical to helping other founders achieve success. Please join her next week for more Mindset for Success stories. That was Dr. Leslie Knudsen, and you can drop her a line at dr.leslieKnudsen@dr.leslieKnudsen.com.